Welcome to the Horror Hive channel, where the darkness and unknown come alive. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an episode of terror. Let's dive into the darkness together.
The abandoned hotel. It was a dark and stormy night when Sarah checked into the old hotel. She had been driving for hours and just needed a place to rest. The hotel looked old and worn, but it was the only one for miles around. As she made her way to her room, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The creaking floorboards and flickering lights only added to her anxiety. As she opened the door to her room, she was hit with the smell of mildew and something else she couldn't quite place. She tried to ignore it and settled into bed, hoping for a good night's sleep. But as she drifted off, she heard a strange scratching sound coming from the wall. She tried to ignore it, but the sound grew louder and more persistent. It sounded like something was trying to claw its way through the wall. Sarah got up and checked the walls, but there was nothing there. She tried to go back to sleep, but the scratching only grew louder. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Sarah was plunged into darkness. She fumbled for her phone to use as a flashlight, but it was dead. She was completely alone in the pitch-black room. That's when she heard it. The sound of someone breathing right next to her. She froze, too scared to move. The breathing grew louder and more ragged, and Sarah could feel the presence of someone or something right next to her bed. Finally, the lights flickered back on and the breathing stopped. Sarah was alone in the room once again, but the experience had left her shaken. She decided to leave the hotel as soon as possible, but when she tried to open the door, it wouldn't budge. She was trapped in a hotel that seemed to be alive with supernatural activity. She screamed for help, but no one came. The scratching started again, and this time it was joined by whispers and moans. Sarah was paralyzed with fear. As the night wore on, she heard more and more strange noises. Doors creaked open and shut, footsteps echoed in the hallways, and voices whispered in her ear. She was being tormented by the ghosts of the hotel's past, and there was nothing she could do to escape. Finally, as the sun began to rise, Sarah heard the sound of the door unlocking. She ran out of the room and never looked back. She later found out that the hotel had a long and dark history, with numerous reports of paranormal activity and unexplained deaths. It was a place of true horror, where the living and the dead mingled in a terrifying dance that could drive even the bravest person to the brink of insanity. Locked in with death. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway for the young couple, but they had no idea that it would turn into a nightmare. The hotel they had booked seemed charming and cozy, with its quaint decor and beautiful surroundings. But as soon as they checked in, they felt like something was off. The receptionist was polite but had a cold, distant demeanor, and the corridors leading to their rooms seemed darker and more sinister than they had anticipated. As they settled into their room, they heard strange noises coming from the hallway outside. It sounded like footsteps, but they were too heavy and uneven to belong to any ordinary hotel guest. Their unease turned into terror when they heard the sound of a door creaking open, followed by a low, menacing laugh. The young couple tried to call the front desk, but their phone was dead. They attempted to leave their room, but the door was locked from the outside. It was then that they realized they were trapped in the hotel with a serial killer. The killer had been lurking in the shadows of the hotel for weeks, stalking his prey and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He had disguised himself as a janitor, gaining access to every room in the hotel without raising any suspicion. He knew the layout of the hotel like the back of his hand, and he used his knowledge to his advantage. The couple tried to find a way out, but every door was locked and every window was barred. The killer was always one step ahead of them, taunting them with his eerie laugh and sending shivers down their spines. They could feel his presence everywhere, lurking in the shadows and waiting for them to make a mistake. As the night wore on, the young couple grew weaker and more desperate. They knew that they were running out of time and that their chances of survival were dwindling. But just when they thought that all was lost, they heard a knock on the door. Thinking that help had arrived, the couple rushed to the door, only to find the killer on the other side, holding a bloody knife. The couple screamed, but it was too late. The killer lunged forward and plunged the knife into their bodies repeatedly until they were dead. The next morning, hotel staff found the couple's lifeless bodies in their room, covered in blood. The police arrived and investigated the scene, but the killer was long gone, leaving no trace behind. The hotel was closed down, and the community mourned the tragic loss of 2 young lives, never knowing the true horrors that had occurred within its walls. The murdered guest. The Grand Hotel had a reputation for luxury and elegance, attracting guests from all over the world. But beneath its opulent facade lay a dark secret. The hotel had a room that was never rented out, a room that had been sealed for years. The staff was instructed never to talk about it, and the guests were blissfully unaware of its existence. One day, a young couple checked into the hotel and were given a room on the top floor. As they made their way to their room, they couldn't help but notice the old, rusty lock on the door across the hall. They asked the bellboy about it, but he just shrugged and said it was an old storeroom. That night, the couple heard strange noises coming from the room. It sounded like someone was moving furniture around. They called the front desk, but the receptionist told them not to worry. It was probably just the old pipes rattling. The next day, the couple decided to explore the hotel. As they walked down the dimly lit hallway, they noticed a hidden door tucked away in the shadows. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to investigate. They opened the door to find a dark, musty staircase leading down to a basement. As they descended the staircase, they felt a chill in the air. The basement was cold, damp, and eerie. The couple explored further, eventually coming across a locked door. It was the same door they had seen the day before, the one with the rusty lock. The couple tried to open it, but it was no use. The lock was too old and corroded. That night, the couple heard the same strange noises coming from the room again. This time, it sounded like someone was crying. The couple called the front desk, but no one answered. They were on their own. The next morning, the couple decided to leave the hotel. As they packed their bags, they noticed a strange smell coming from the room across the hall. It was a foul, rotten odor that made them gag. They knew they had to investigate. They managed to pry open the door, revealing a room covered in dust and cobwebs. In the corner, they saw a large trunk. They opened it to find a decomposing body. It was a young woman, her face twisted in agony. The couple immediately called the police. As the investigation unfolded, it was revealed that the hotel's owner had been using the room to hide his victims. He had been luring young women to the hotel and then killing them, burying their bodies in the basement. The hotel was closed down, and the owner was sentenced to life in prison.
We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of horror. We strive to bring you the best in horror entertainment, and we appreciate your support. Remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of terror. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in our next story.